It's the Awake Space Astrology Podcast, and I'm Laurie Rivers with you, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. All right, we're going to have a jam-packed episode. In fact, I didn't want to make this like a 2-hour episode again. I know you guys like them a little shorter, like around the hour mark. So if you've been looking forward to those Q&As that we put on the podcast, I've got a free post on Patreon where you could go listen to Professor Jen and me answer patron questions. And we talk about things like, when will the big one happen in California? And if it will happen, and what does it mean? And what do we need to prepare for? We're answering questions about the nodes. We've got a question about deja vu and some other really good questions. And like, what does it mean when you have a planet near a house cusp? So if you've been wanting to learn more about astrology, you can join me and Jennifer J. Russell, the phenomenal astrologer who teaches my curriculum for natal chart foundations, and you can hear us chat about that. We've got a very special guest on the podcast. I've got the medium Matilda, the real medium Matilda, with me again. You guys heard her on the show back in December when we gave our 2024 predictions. We're actually talking about spiritual gaslighting, and we play a game, a word association game, and it's pretty funny. So I've got her as my guest, which is an exciting way to start the week. And I'm going to give you your March rundown, because March it's not coming in easy, folks. And it's not going to leave easy either. We've got a lot happening, and a lot more than that lunar eclipse at the end of the month. So get ready. I give you advice on how to manage through the month. Again, this is the overview. And as you know, I go week by week, helping you surf that cosmic tide, and the tide will be high. I mean, we're in for a month. I know you want a break. I know you're tired, but we go through it together. I've got you. And then I go on a rant. Actually, I go on a rant before I talk to medium Matilda. I go on a rant about spiritual gaslighting because it's something I see all too much of in the general spiritual community, but it bleeds into astrological interpretation, and it's just damaging to people who have already gone through a lot. And I feel it's our job as people who give astrological counsel, astrological advice, to empower our clients, not further oppress them or cause them more distress. So I talk about that as well. And if I do say so myself, I think I do a fair Gandalf impression. So you don't want to miss that. All right. Let's talk about March, though. That's up next. Well, they say that March comes in like a lion and leaves like a lamb, and that may be true. Although I think we just keep roaring through 2024. March is something else. It is, it's wild. It's wild. We start March 1st with some very volatile energy. And I am unconvinced that they will have a deal to keep the government open. When I look at the chart for March 1st, it just doesn't look like they're going to make it, guys. It's very volatile. Financially, things are in flux. We could see stock market fluctuations all over the place. And when I say fluctuations, I mean, it can dive and rise. It's going to be all over the place. It feels like it's on a ride, not quite the Tower of Terror, but more like a really wonky roller coaster ride, up and down and sideways and jostling. Lots of tension in the chart for March 1st. and it's politically just things are really building pressure wise. Like the pressure cooker is the steam is coming out of the vents, and she looks like she's gonna blow. We could see actual besides seismic activity, we could see volcanic activity or geothermal activity at the very least in some kind of way. It's pretty wild. Pretty wild. I'm still working on the March magazine, getting that and moving slow, guys. I've been teaching a lot of classes, so. But it will be out to you on March 1st or 2nd in Patreon, so you can be ready because March just has a lot happening. Matilda and I were talking about that. We were really talking about our concerns on March, just globally. Now, remember, on a personal level, you can be just fine. But here's just the astrology rundown for March itself. The first is pretty wild because we have the moon in Scorpio in opposition to both Jupiter and Uranus at midnight and squaring off with Mars. Ha ha ha, we're in danger. Well, with Venus and then Mars. And so this is financial flux. Mars will be around the 8th. It's crazy. So we've got on the 3rd, Venus is square, Uranus like in a tight square. That's when it's exact. So just from the end, of this week or midweek, just even from today, from Monday today, February 26th, into March, we're looking at weird financial situations. I think that bank crisis is looming as well. And I don't think they're thinking about that in terms of a government shutdown. So we'll see what's going on with that. There's so much going on. March 4th, Mercury is sextile Uranus. Now, that was supposed to be the start of the Trump trial, and that's been moved, but they haven't set the date yet. They're waiting on the immunity ruling, so we don't have information on that. I am going to reiterate, Trump will not lead anything again. He's done for. I don't care what primary he wins where. I just don't. Okay. He's out. So I'm not going to change my prediction. I'm just not. Nothing has changed in his astrology. I'm not worried about it. He does happen to have a trial start on the 25th, and that's a lunar eclipse day. So that should be interesting. We'll talk about that later in March, before that happens, I'll talk about it. But on the 9th, we have Mars square Uranus. We have the sun is sextile Uranus and Mercury ingresses into Aries. Weather-wise, it is just really intense around the globe. I think we're going to see big fires in some places. Like, I know Australia has fires, but this week could get a lot worse. We could see big windstorms, big waves. There's a lot going on in March. It's really, really, it's kooky. It's kooky weather. Climate change is up on deck. I think we might even hear some news about, ice melting at the poles and all that other fun stuff. Got the new moon in Pisces on March 10th. And again, I'll talk about that in more detail next week. We'll talk about that new moon and how you can make the most of that energy. March 11th, we have Venus ingressing into Pisces. So Venus moves into Pisces. The sun will be conjunct Neptune on the 17th. And I was looking at the 17th chart, and it too is a little volatile. I don't know, guys. It's a wild month. I expect some unusual happenings. We also, I think, are going to hear a lot about espionage, state secrets. We're going to hear a lot. First week of March too, I think there's just going to be some extreme violence around the globe, whether it's war, terrorism, authoritarianism, in just oppression. oppression in the form of violence. We could see some stabbings in public. We could see, I don't know. We could, and there's going to be weird violence too, and that'll be the first week of March. March. Let's see. The spring equinox, or actually the equinox, because in the northern hemisphere it's spring, but I have a lot of listeners in the southern hemisphere, so that's your fall equinox for those of you in the southern hemisphere, and that's when the sun ingresses into Aries, and it's the beginning of the astrological new year. I'll talk about that in a minute as well. March 21st, we have the sun sextiling with Pluto. Venus is conjunct Saturn. Boy, if there was ever a day to just be a baller on the manifestation, that would be a day. Okay, the world might look crazy, but that's a great day to be really focused on. Again, this is a year of blowing through the blocks, busting through the insecurity, and just saying, screw it, let's do it. Let's just get this done. March 22nd, we have Mars moving into Pisces. Whoo, that's going to be some interesting action. I know a lot of people say, oh, Mars in Pisces is passive. And I'm like, have you even studied the elements? Okay, everybody's like, fire is so powerful, water is so weak. And I'm like, but water puts out fire, It's like, what are you talking about? Rock, paper, scissors, people. Rock, paper, scissors. And Mars in Pisces is not as passive as you think. It is the ocean, and I think we may see some tsunamis. And not necessarily literally, but we might. And March 25th is that full moon in Libra, which is also a lunar eclipse. It's a partial lunar eclipse, but it is visible in a whole lot of places. And so, yeah, there's that. We can expect a lot of changes in North and South America, part of North Africa, like the northwestern part, the tip, not as far as the Congo, but Ivory Coast, Ghana, part of Nigeria, we'll see it. And then, of course, Western and part of Eastern Europe. So I expect a lot of political changes to be going on with that lunar eclipse. And that's wild card energy. All right. On a personal level, again, you can have just a fine time. Doesn't mean it's going to be horrible for you. This is what I wrote in the 2024 year ahead back in June of 2024, and then I update in December. I think I put NATO in a crisis in December, but I did have the escalation of war back in June. So the housing market is going to continue to slide, and that's partially just because people are having trouble getting mortgages. So housing market needs some CPR. Commercial real estate is on a fire sale. It is on discount in March. We're going to see a lot of private equity firms under strain. We could start seeing a lot of defaults in March. We could see a banking crisis in March. I don't think we're going to see big banks in trouble, but your smaller local or the more niche banks are definitely not having a good time of it. We're going to see workers refuse to come in. People are done. We're going to see people starting businesses at record rates. Some of it is going to be because they have to. We've had a lot of layoffs. Tech sector is going to be under an immense amount of strain. We're going to see strikes of all kind or protests, and these are going to escalate worldwide. This isn't just in one place in the world. War will escalate, expand, or we could see it break out in multiple areas of the globe. All international organizations are under strain, and NATO faces a crisis. Things are really kind of bubbling up in global affairs. Okay. Do I see World War III with mushroom clouds? No, but I do see economic warfare, and I do start to see some potential naval action. My eyes on, China, Taiwan, North and South Korea. Yes, it is on the Middle East. I have some hope in that regard, meaning I don't think the entire region is going to blow, but It's touch and go first week of March. I think a lot of what's going on in the Middle East, you're going to see some economic actions start to take place. There's definitely strain in all international organizations. That's everything from NATO to the UN. You know, as we're just going to be seeing some changing tides in that respect. Labor disputes started in 2023 or early 2024. Increase in companies that union bust are going to face economic fallout. Expect lots of protests around the lunar eclipse. These can be for social reasons, anti-war and pro-labor. And the weather in March is wet. We could see more big storms, very wet end of March into early April with flooding increased. Southwest has extra precipitation that impacts infrastructure. And really, the whole month is volatile weather-wise globally. And it often is by the time we get to the equinox. The equinox tends to be a very unsettled time. And if you thought, okay, so we luck out, we get through March, April is going to be better, right? Well, April 1st starts with Mercury retrograde. So, can we catch a break, universe? I don't think so. I don't know. This is a really good time to stop trying to force normal to happen and stop lamenting it being gone, because the people who are going to do best in this energy, the people who are going to do best are the people who know how to punt. Okay. What do I mean by punt? It's really the ultimate of, if the universe throws you lemons, throw them back and demand cookies. It's you. If you have to zig, then zag. And it's okay to have a moment where you're tired and you feel defeated. And, it's a little bit like Rocky getting knocked to the canvas. We all go there. We all have times where we've just had enough and we need a pity party and we got to cry. But the key is you get back up and you take a breath and you get back at it. Okay. One of my favorite techniques, if I've just felt overloaded, is if I have that kind of day where I get to the breaking point and everything has gone wrong that can go wrong, right? And it could be a bunch of little stuff. It doesn't even have to be big stuff, but those days you spend an hour looking for your car keys and they were right where you put them the last time. You put on mismatching shoes, you're late to a meeting, you spill your coffee at 5 seconds before you walk in the door to give a presentation. Those days where it just adds up and then you're done, right? DONE, put a fork in you. I let that day be that day. Like after I've had 5 or 6 things go bottoms up, I'm like, okay, today just sucks and I am going to just go to bed early and I'm going to wake up and tomorrow's a whole new day. And I'm just going to give myself a reset. It's just, some days are not the day. So if you have some of those days, it's okay. The energy right now is crazy and it's forcing us to do things differently. Okay, it doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter how organized you normally are. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter. We all have days like this, right? So March is going to be interesting. So I kind of want to talk about that first day of March, because March 1st is just, I'm not going to lie, it's a clusterfuck. Okay, kids, cover your ears. Astro Mama's feeling that energy. It's a lot that day. I promise I'll be good. I'm going to be good. I'm probably not as bad as I think I'm being. But when I look at about 4:30 in the morning on the West Coast, 7:30 a.m. on the East Coast, we've got some big headlines brewing. So we all may wake up to some news that's a little disconcerting. And it could be about something that happened on the 29th, because the moon moves into Scorpio on, let's see, like the 20... 9th. Let me look at my magazine because I know I put that prediction there. Like I said, I'm still working on it for March. But if you want to know, I'll tell you while I'm looking this up. I am writing an article on the lunar eclipse, as well as talking about critical degrees in the astrology school section. Of course, you get your horoscopes, always, talking about how to make the most out of that lunar activity. And where'd it go? Hang on. I scrolled past it. There's so much to this magazine. All right, February 8th, actually, to March. It's not March 3rd. What was I thinking? It can't be. That's too many days. So it's probably like the 29th to the 2nd. Hold on. Lunations. I gotta look up my lunations. I have that has to be a typo. Back to Jen made me a list of all the lunations. So from the 28th to the 2nd of March. So it's not the 3rd. 28th to the 2nd. We have the moon in Scorpio. So February 28th to March 2nd. And it packs a wallop. We could see surprise attacks or mass violence on the 28th. We could see, if I give a date, there's a date there. We could also see, I would say 28th through the 1st on that. Murder or assassinations, big, and that could be, mass violence, but it could also be assassination attempt of political figures. Big information leaks revealed or serious espionage allegations, burst water mains or issues with drainage, public utilities, probably also sewers. Waterborne illnesses make the headlines, water quality issues or discussions around commercial use of water, flooding, storms, high tide. Biden or Putin could face serious health crisis or political challenge. War crimes, and mass graves discovered, and yeah, it's more than Gaza. There's other places. More business loan defaults, graveyards, cemeteries, and mortuaries are up on deck. Donald Trump loses contract or faces issue with family properties, homes during that time period. Sabotage of pipeline or transportation of toxic waste exposed. Issues with oil refineries and gas pipelines. It could also be ships. Navy exercises could be turned into conflicts and skirmishes, bomb threats, and or terrorist alerts. Could see seismic activity offshore of New Zealand, Australia, Chile, and the Atlantic Ridge. Those are all up on deck. Southern California might want to be a little wary. I think we may see something onshore in Southern California. Keep your eye on those San Bernardino Mountains. That area that's been active, but, it can happen anywhere. I think up to maybe up to... I'm going to look at the 29th. I don't know why I feel like the 29th is the day I need to look at, but I'm pulling. Oh, when you take a screenshot and you think you're on your software. So, we can also, the tech has been weird and it'll be glitchy. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have internet outages, on the 1st. So do expect continued problems with cell phone carriers, internet providers. If you can, get some cash out ahead of March 1st. Just $20-$30 if that's what you've got. But I would get some cash just to have on hand, just in case, because I think we're going to see some real issues with, maybe points of sales, systems. We may need that cash on hand just out of necessity. Milk, bread, and eggs worth, tank of gas worth, that kind of thing. So keep your eye out for that. When it comes to the government shutdown, I don't know. I just think I just don't think it's likely that it is going to stay open on the 1st. I think they may let it shut down. And I think we'll have an agreement by like I don't know, 4th or 5th, maybe. So the 8th looks pretty wild as well, but I think they've got it sorted by then. That might be the banking crisis. So I don't know. I am gonna say, Donald Trump is toast. So don't let the media use him to distract you from other things. I think at this point, the Trump situation, although serious, don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't think it's serious. I think it's a great tool for the media and the political parties to distract people away from other things going on. And just use your discernment, okay? Don't let them whip you up into fear. Use your discernment. So, yeah, there's that. So that's what's coming up in March. Woo! Super exciting. Yeah, I think it's time for some patron shout-outs, don't you? All right, let's do that. Let's do some patron shout-outs. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do in Patreon in March. And let's all get a little excited about that. Alrighty, you heard the music. It's time for some patron shout-outs. Got a bunch of new patrons this month. That's really exciting. Let's see. Let me get to the list. So I always announce our latest patrons. I just do first names only because that's super cool. Without you, there is no podcast. There is no TikToks. I don't do as many TikToks as I used to. Some of that is... I'm finding new strategies. Don't worry. I go through fits and stages. I'm actually going to be talking about something I talked about in TikToks this last week. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things. Planet of the Month is looking at the 3rd house. Of course, you're going to get your discounts. I'll be offering the Healing the Money Wound class again. Offering the Healing the Money Wound class. Second week of March. So stay tuned for details on that. It comes with a group. And everybody who's taken it before gets to take it again. Consider it a beta, right? We're fleshing some things out, making it clear, dotting our I's, crossing our T's. Finding out we lost 5 paragraphs in the manuscript that we have to figure out what they were. Yeah, it's good times. Alrighty. We have big thanks to Susan, Julie, Tiffany, Rachel, Christy, Olivia offline, Michelle, Casey, Lizzie, Cindy, Christian, Sarah P, Brittany, Shelby, Shan, Lauren E, Haley, PK, Becca, Katie, Cindy, MK, Ominous Roses, Jordan, GB, Rebecca, Michaela, Holly, Amber, Amanda, Heather, Brianna, Mary, Natasha, Carter, Stephanie, Lauren, Vanessa, Lisa, Jen, Christy, Christina, Manny, Sarah, Cynthia, Tawny, Rebecca, Elizabeth, Danielle, Nina, Anne, Tierney, Nicole, Anna Banana, Yoko, Lisa, Wendy K, Karen D, and Saturn. Saturn's in the house. So remember, if you're patrons, you get some pretty cool bennies. You get the Astro Guides. Those are ebooks that I wrote. They're not like little opinion pieces. Those are really good resources for you, including the one on Chiron. Because if I have several axes to grind with the astrological world. One of those is the overuse of the nodes, and the other is Chiron. We won't talk about Lilith right now. I've already calmed down from my rant about that in the Healing the Money Moon class. Don't get me started about Lilith. Don't. I'll do a rant about that a different day. But speaking of rants, I'm going to give a rant about spiritual gaslighting because it infiltrates the astrological world and it does a lot of damage. It does a lot of damage. In all the years I've been doing this and being in the spiritual groups or new age adjacent groups, I've floated in and around those spaces. Sometimes I do it just for observation. It's not ever because I was like, oh yeah, I want to wear white robes and do the aesthetic. But I also like to study people. But even in the woo-woo stories, there's a lot of things that people pass off as wisdom and knowledge that is really a tool of oppression. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. And then I have a really special guest that's joining us. So, yeah. But then you know that I told you in the introduction. All right, let me get in my rant. And so, sit back, grab some tea, maybe put some, or coffee or hot chocolate. Well, if you're at work, don't put a little something in it. You want to keep your job. But here we go. Laurie's going to get spicy. You shall not pass. How's that for a Gandalf? That's kind of how I feel about spiritual gaslighting, whether it's offline or online. And there are a lot of people who don't always realize it's gaslighting. Okay. Now, I've been in this world, this woo-woo world, metaphysical world, spiritual world for a very long time. And before that, though I was interested in the subjects of the occult, even though I wouldn't have called it that, I was also very well churched and into religion, philosophy, etc. So my whole life, I have been interested in these things, like even as a small child. Okay. As an adult who is very fascinated, right, by all things metaphysical, which is the understanding of what it is to be alive here now on this planet at this time, what makes us human, okay. I have explored the origins of concepts, okay. Most people don't. They'll be like, oh, that person knows more than me. I'm just going to accept it. And this week, I was talking about spiritual gaslighting, and I had a comment that was like, well, that's not what these other people say. Yeah, these other people say this other thing, because I was talking about soul contracts, and the fact that when people say you choose your trauma, okay. Something I have never felt was acceptable. I didn't like it's, God's will. I didn't like the idea that you would agree to something in a past life when it comes to trauma, accidents, being in a war, etc. To me, that is an excuse that lets perpetrators of violence get off the hook. Really, truly, because you chose it. You chose it. It is victim blaming. It is victim shaming. Or, you're paying off a karmic debt. Those are all very easily weaponized tools of oppression. Okay. Period. And I've had to walk through that muddy water in my own journey, because I too have been that person looking for guidance, trying to make sense of the senseless. That's how I got into astrology many moons ago, right? 1995. God. So long ago. And running into that over and over again, you chose your trauma in a past life. Oh my God, look at the karma you have to pay off, which is a completely lazy way of looking at things for those who keep promoting it, who've got experience. Okay. I'm not talking about if you're new to the concepts, if you're just trying to learn and you're trying to figure it out. You don't know any better. I've said the same things 30 years ago. Okay. And it was easy to believe because when you've lived through trauma, it's real easy to go there. Like, I don't know why else this shit happened to me. I must have been horrendous, right? Not that we even have to believe we deserved it in the first place, but hello, it's crazy making, literally crazy making. So to have somebody say, well, that's not what other people say, and then expect me to just accept that, go, oh, well, all those other people must be right, is ridiculous. Because I've sat and worked on this. Now, you don't have to believe me either. You don't have to say, because I say so, it's right. All right. But I'm going to posit some questions. And that's what I did in response, is I posited questions. Okay. Like if God needs to learn through you. And I talk about that with Matilda later on. So I'm not going to go back into that. You get to hear Matilda's take on it because she too has been a professional of good standing. So it's not just enough to be a pro. You get paid for what you do. We have a track record. Okay. You're looking at two people who are very, very good at what they do. All right. They're not putzing around. They're not kind of sort of accurate. We both are very accurate at what we do. Her as a medium, me as an astrologer. When it comes to astrology, we see this often with Chiron, Saturn, the nodes. People using that as a way to reinforce the trauma story, reinforce the pain story. Okay. Which causes a lot of damage. And it further victimizes people. And I'll say it over and over again. I wrote an ebook on Chiron. Chiron is not the wound you cannot heal. It is not. If you have been traumatized, okay, and I'm talking about psychological, emotional, mental, okay. If you have been traumatized, you have the ability to heal. Now, it can take a long time. It takes a lot of work. Not saying it's easy. It's not a wish upon a star. But you can heal. Neuroscience is proving that out over and over and over again. Okay? Whereas the idea that you're always broken, you'll never be better, you're destined to this, that is a tool of oppression. Okay. I'm very serious about this because I know how that kind of thought process and that kind of messaging can hold people back, because I got held back by it. Okay. Until I went, wait a minute, just because everybody's talking about it, where's the evidence? Okay. Because when you have gone through a lot, you're just trying to make sense of life and you're in pain or you're numb or, right? Whatever you're experiencing. And so you have to be really careful about when a message neatly fits your narrative. Okay. Neatly fits into that. Because I want you to think about this. Okay. This is just positing questions for you. So if you left an organized religion, okay, and I'm not telling you to, because I think people need to believe what resonates inside of their hearts, okay, and connects with them. But let's say you were raised a certain way and you left that tradition, okay, for whatever reason, and then you went into the spiritual or the new age communities or the magic communities or whatever, or another religion even. And you go, this resonates with me. This is so true. Is it resonating because it's resonating with you at a soul level? Like you just get those shivers, the ones that just tingle all the way through you. It's just, it's a soul truth. Or is it resonating because it mirrors something you grew up hearing, but it's said in words that you like better? Because you chose it is equal to God's will, especially when we look at evangelicalism. It's very wrapped in Calvinistic beliefs, and Calvinism was, just to sum it up in a nutshell, a Protestant belief that evangelicalism just is steeped in, where if you were good and God favored you, you got blessings, and if you pissed God off, your life sucked. So, you were a deep sinner. Okay. Couldn't be further from the message of Christianity theologically, but there it is. You have to be careful. It's kind of like people who didn't like the Left Behind message, but believing in ascension and a new earth where there will leave people behind. How spiritual is that? Oh, those poor souls, those poor sinners are getting left behind. Are you kidding? This is all very, very dangerous. And in astrology, those beliefs seep into how people interpret people's charts. And if somebody's reading for somebody, and I remember as a young astrologer, I got a wave of clients who had been traumatized because I was in my healing journey. And a lot of times our clients reflect where we're at, right? And I wasn't as skilled as I am with working with people either. So I was also pretty good at triggering people unintentionally. And this is, again, many years ago, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I had maybe 5 clients in a row tell me that an astrologer told them they were a hot mess, they were busted and broken, and wouldn't heal. They were paying off karmic debts. They'd been horrible people in past lives. And I was like, I don't even see where they could see that in here, Oh, well, it was this thing or that thing, South Node conjunct Saturn or Pluto. And I was like, that's not what that means. And when I've had astrological discussions with people who know just enough to be dangerous and are stuck in their ego, they'll be like, well, everybody interprets different. No, there's some things we don't interpret that way. Because that is a patriarchal, it is truly dominance and control oriented. Okay, if we want to move forward as human beings, we don't do that to people. All right, it makes no logical sense at all. None. No logical sense that there would be the favored and the unfavored. You are here in this body for this lifetime. I'm not saying past lives don't exist. And in fact, I do believe we could experience time at multiple levels and multiple expressions of self. Okay. It gets very multidimensional if you get in a one-on-one conversation with me. But are we paying off from something that this physical body did not do as a child? As a child? No. And that goes for accidents, wars, etc. But if we go back to the Bronze Age, and I'm always going back to the Bronze Age, because collective warfare, organized warfare, didn't really start until the Bronze Age. There was personal violence, There were raids, okay? But there wasn't really armies, okay? The beginning of modern warfare. That started when the concept of ownership started, okay? Instead of collective gathering and hunting, etc., right? Agrarian civilization got started, which is where a lot of the belief systems we have today that have to do with dominance and control, we call it the patriarchy, because patriarchy technically is male-centered, but we can call dominance and control patriarchy. Okay, not all men are dominating and controlling, however, the system has operated that way. These stories, whether, it's Gilgamesh, okay, or other mythologies that led into what became the Old Testament, what led into the New Testament, these stories have built upon each other, okay? And that's a historical fact. It's a historical fact. All right. Have perpetuated social and cultural beliefs, which include all of the excuses that allow people to get away with hurting other people in society, whether it's victim blaming, shaming, etc., giving a spiritual cause. And we have to be careful with that. I gave my examples on TikTok. You can head over to my TikTok. It's in the show notes, and you can look at those. I might put those up on Patreon just because I think one of those was a good, really nice little rant on that. But I'm really serious about that. And what's funny is the person I commented to, and when they doubled down on their argument, and I said, interesting comment. That's all I said. They unfollowed me, which is fine. I don't need them to follow me. But it's the fact that you'll double down on something because everybody says so, not looking at the financial gain people can make out of making people afraid. As a world server, as a world teacher, okay, somebody who teaches people around the globe, it is my job to empower my clients, my students, my audience. It is not for me to make people afraid for their eternal existence. It is not to condone through some spiritual excuse anything they've been through. Okay? So you didn't choose your trauma. You didn't go here. Now, what we do is our higher self or our spiritual self, our self connected to the all that is, source, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, will use any situation to meet the agenda of the lifetime. So we know that this physical reality is really hard and really harsh. It's a dense way of being when we're used to being subatomic particles, okay? We know being in a physical body is going to be an interesting ride. What the astrology chart shows, which it does show potential traumas, it does show potential, and by the way, you don't have to look for Chiron. If you're a good astrologer, you know exactly, without anything extraneous, with the luminaries and the planets, how to exactly find a history of trauma, abuse, accidents, etc., through either personal placements or transits. Okay, period. If you can't see that and you're advising people, you have no business being a professional astrologer. You haven't studied enough, or, well, and using asteroids as a way of divining that is it's not good astrology, period. It's not. And I will die on that hill. I really will. It's not good astrology. It's just not. It's expedient, but it's not replicable. And the reason why it resonates with people is because everybody's been traumatized in a certain kind of way. And these are very general definitions that, of course, you're going to resonate with if you've not done the healing path where you could have an objective look. I know, I've been there. Like I said, I've been there. And there's reasons for it. If we're going to deconstruct in this process, we're going to deconstruct our social cultural programming, we have to deconstruct the spiritual narratives as well. If they oppress, they do not serve us. Okay, that's my rant. And that's where I become Gandalf, because I have fought my Balrog and came out fresh and clean. Okay. Healing is hard enough. We don't need to make it harder. Okay. But if a reader is telling you somehow chose it, or you had a contract with that person because you hurt them in a lifetime, if they're trying to convince you that you were somehow this, horrendous human being, that is just absolute spiritual gaslighting. And spiritual is not the word I would use for it. It's abusive, and it's not okay. Okay. Again, your soul self, your source self, your connection to the divine, the all that is, God, the universe, that inner being, higher self, whatever you want to call it, it will use all tools at its disposal, which are also in your astrology chart, to meet the objective of the lifetime. Okay. So don't buy into things that disempower you or make you feel bad about yourself. And it might resonate, and it might feel like, oh, that must be true. That feels true. It might feel true because that's what you grew up hearing with different words. Okay. So you don't have to take my word for it. These are my beliefs. This is how I feel. I obviously feel very strongly about this, but examine it. Just examine it. Just ask some questions. That's all. Just instead of immediately rejecting, ask questions. Because there's a lot of people who get up and talk about these things and have a lot of confidence in what they're saying. And they may even believe it to be true. They may not be intentionally manipulative or oppressive. Okay? But they haven't necessarily critically examined the belief. And we've got to critically examine our beliefs to know if they're our beliefs or not. Okay. Again, I'm not saying past lives don't exist, but we're not here to replay the same story over and over and over and over and over again. Okay. All right. All right. I love you. Let's talk to Matilda. We have a very special guest. We have the real medium Matilda. Hello, the real medium Matilda.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. It's always a pleasure. You're a hoot. I am still super grateful to our audiences for introducing us because
I know. They knew.
They did. They're good people. They're good people. Are you ready to?
Audience.
Oh my God, yes. Brilliant
100%.
people. Yes. Quality over quantity is what I
Most
say.
Definitely, yes.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about spiritual gaslighting.
Ooh, fun.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So I know you have feelings on this.
Really? I have I spoken publicly on this? Really? Yes.
You have. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Tell me, what's the one thing, like, of all the different kinds, like, you call it lazy spirituality, but...
Yes, I call it lazy spirituality. It is people that... It's often the people that haven't healed that go out there and do readings. And they have been lazy in their healing. So they blame everyone's issues on past lives and agreements that they made in their past life or before they came to this body. It's lazy, it's dangerous, it's victim blaming, and it's not giving our clients the power to help themselves. Because if you can blame something on a past life, then you can't do anything about it.
Right.
So, it's pure laziness, and it's lying, because who would make an agreement to experience trauma in this life?
Right. What do you think about the concept that that's how God learns, or that's how Source learns?
No, because if they haven't learned the lesson by now, with all the pain and suffering that the world has undergone, and not just us in this century, but centuries have gone by. We're talking about plagues, we're talking about mass deaths, we're talking about wars, we're talking about many different forms of life on this planet. Tell me that our universe, because I don't do the source word, hasn't learned the lesson. We all have individual lessons to learn, but they are not necessarily things that, well, they're not things we've brought from our past life. They are things that we have to learn individually in order to move forward. I think it's lazy. I think it's blaming someone because you don't have the answer and you don't have the ability to help someone else, which is our job. We're here to help people. I don't like the word source.
Talk about that. Why don't you like that? I'm just curious because
it's again, I suppose it's very new age. It's very new age. I don't like it at all. I don't like the new age cultish things. And it's often used by people that don't know what they're talking about.
There's that. Yeah.
And they have no spiritual training, ability, or gift. And they're trying to sound clever.
Right. So my question from there is, how do people know the difference? Because as you know, we discuss these things often in our frustration.
Offline,
Offline. You and I are both teachers in a way. You know, we're people of service, and there's so much misinformation out there. And again, the new age scene has always been god awful. How can people tell the difference? What do you tell your clients? How do you educate your clients on that?
I educate them in a way that, well, they've got to go with their gut for a start. Know what you want out of a reading or who you are getting your reading from. That's a really important thing. Understand the different abilities. It's not a gift. It is an ability. The gift is in how we relay the information. It's or giving the information. What we have is an ability. Make sure that these people have abilities.
How do you do that? How can you make sure somebody has an ability? Like what?
They've got to give you proof. It's called evidence. That's why it's evidential mediumship. They should be able to give you information about people that you've lost. They should be able to give you names, dates, information has somebody passed away, information about yourself that no one else could know. You can't just trust the information someone's giving you without them proving how they're getting the information first off. And that's where true spirituality is. It's not in just, otherwise you're just going to somebody that you could be going to a plumber, and have you seen the plumber's certificate to show that they're actually a plumber? And then your pipes are all screwed up. But look for proof. Look at references or reviews. Listen to what they have to say. And if you're watching somebody do readings online, make sure they're just not spreading information that they want you to believe. Make sure that they're giving you proof that they're connected to you before they give you that information.
Right.
And preferably they don't use the word source.
See, I don't mind the word source because I'm not fond of the deities. So to me, It's just another quantum level, but I can see why you wouldn't like it because it's lingo. I also like all that is, everything that's alive, everything that's divine. But I'm kind of a live and let live on the God thing. I'm not fond of deities in general. That's a different episode.
No, and that's a different opinion. It's whoever's God you believe in. Your God, what I say. I prefer to use the word universe.
Yeah, universe is just right up there with it. Absolutely. Although I find people often make the universe something separate from themselves, and the same with source, the same with God, when we're actually part of it.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. And people have to understand that we're all one. We're all encompassed. And there is the afterlife isn't separate to us. It's there. It's with you. And people just assume that they're living on a cloud somewhere, but they're walking beside you every day.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Shall we play a game?
Oh, a game? Yes, please.
All right. When you come up just with the first word that comes to mind when you hear twin flames.
I want to stick a fork in my eye. I hate that. Twin flames is a concept that was brought up by someone wanting to make people hold on because their lover had run away. And your lover's run away, they must be your twin flame, and they're the runner. And then you sit and you wait, and you wait, and then you wait. And then you lose 8 years of your life, and your twin flame doesn't come back because he's married Gladys up the street. And he was never your twin flame because they don't exist.
Yeah.
But if someone asks me for a reading about their twin flame, I do cry. And want to stick a fork in my eye.
Your good eye or your bad eye?
Hopefully my bad eye, because then I won't be with that side. I won't notice if I put it in my bad eye.
Me either. Oh, I know I'm bad. I'm bad.
Those of you that are not playing along at home, Laurie and I are both blind in one eye. Which one's yours?
The left.
And mine is the right.
So together we've got a pair.
Yes. We cannot see. Go on.
But we see.
We see.
With great clarity. Yes. Oh, my God. So, all right, one more.
Okay.
What comes to mind when you hear the term soul contract? Soul contract.
Well, you're putting out the big guns today, aren't you? Soul contract. Soul contract. A made-up story by a lazy spiritual practitioner who doesn't want to or know about healing, so she blames something that you have no control over. Was I supposed to give you a one-word answer?
No, that's fine.
Okay, that's good.
That's all works, because I don't think any of our one words would help us out.
Oh, there's plenty that would help us out, but none that can be used on the internet without having us banned. Yeah, soul contracts are spiritual gaslighting.
Yeah. Tools of oppression.
Tools of oppression. They are not real spirituality.
No.
And if someone tells you that you've made a soul contract with somebody, anybody, or nobody, run a mile. Because, and we have, do you know what? I believe in soulmates because I think we have lots of soulmates. Yeah. We don't just have one, we have lots.
Oh, absolutely. And they can be a wide range of relationship from animals to people. Yeah. You learn lots of things. Yeah.
So, but soul contracts, no. I want to cry. I'm very dramatic, aren't I?
That's all right. It amuses me. It amuses me.
But those are my answers to my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. They were kinder than mine would be. So, yay. Good for you. So, see, it's not just me. To my listeners, see, I'm not the only mean one out there. So
I'm always mean. Yes. I'm not mean to anyone that reads with me. I'm very nice, although I do make people cry on a regular basis. But that's part of my job.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun.
It is fun. We'll play a game another time.
We will. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. We've got March coming in roaring like a lion, and probably roaring like a lion the whole time into April. We had some rants. I did a Gandalf impression. Just like I said at the top of the show, if you've been waiting for the astrology Q&A, I've put it up as a free post on Patreon. Okay, so you could check the show notes for that, or go to patreon.com/the Awake Space. And again, my ultimate gratitude to the patrons of the Awake Space for sponsoring the podcast, making it possible for listeners like you. And now that I have to go get a new mic because my mic died. Yeah, that whole Mars and Venus squaring off with Uranus and Taurus. I know. See? Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week. And we'll give you some good news too. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host. Have a good one.